So you're ready or think you're ready to hire an assistant. How does this work? What do we look for? How do we do this? There are so many benefits to having a virtual or remote assistant. Often, so many of the tasks we need an assistant for can be done by somebody who's not living in the same space as we are or not working in the same office as we are. Having a virtual remote assistant allows us to have a lot of flexibility. They can work from anywhere, they can be anywhere, so you can really hire for skill and capability as opposed to being limited by geography. Often having a virtual or remote assistant allows you to have much lower cost as well. So there's little to no overhead. Most often when you're looking for a virtual or remote assistant, they're going to have already a computer and access to internet, things like that. So the overhead is very, very low. You're not having to pay for office space. And then depending on where you are, often this can be the most cost-effective option for you as well. So one of the other great benefits of having a virtual or remote assistant is this flexibility of schedule and the number of hours that someone can work for you. In my experience, usually when you're working with someone remotely or virtually, it's typically going to be on an hourly type of basis. So establishing an hourly pay rate is going to be important. But the beauty of that is often what you'll find is you may need an assistant for what you think is only about 5 or 10 hours a week. And that's easier to do with a remote assistant than it is with someone who's working in your office. So the first step in establishing whether or not it makes sense to hire an assistant is identifying what are the things that we want to delegate to an assistant. You want to figure out what are the things that literally only you could do with your skill set, and pretty much everything else you want to take off your plate and give to somebody else. So you want to establish all the tasks that this person would be doing first and foremost. Now, of course, if this is going to be a remote or virtual assistant, we have to identify if these tasks can be done remotely. If one of those tasks is to literally put paper files into file boxes and this person lives in a different country, that might be a difficult task. But hopefully for most of us, a lot of those things that we're doing throughout the day can be delegated to somebody who doesn't live or work in the same space. So what are those things that need to be delegated? Can they be done remotely? And then what's the skill set that's needed for somebody to accomplish those things? Often there's going to be some training involved. Even if we think these are obvious, simple, easy tasks, the reality is someone else could do them, but it may not be the way that you like it done. And so what's the skill set needed here for these tasks? The other challenge that I would encourage you to think about as you look at all the things you're doing throughout the course of the day is to go back through that list with a fine-tooth comb and really ask yourself if all the things that you thought only you could do are truly things that only you can do. Often when we do this task with clients, their first go round, they have a lot more still left on their own plate. And then when they go back through it, they realize that there are things they could let go of. They just don't have anybody trained well enough to be able to let go of those things yet. So identify all the tasks that somebody else could do if they were trained properly and you had the right person. So once we've made a list of all those things that we want to delegate to an assistant, then we have to actually create a job description. We have to get the word out that we're looking for a virtual or remote assistant. So there's easy ways to go about this. You can search online for typical job descriptions of a virtual assistant, but here are some things to think about. What's the skill set that's required for this role? What specifically are their duties going to be? What type of person do you want to work with? In other words, taking into consideration somebody's character is actually fairly important if this is somebody that you're going to entrust with a part of your business. So what type of person? Are they a team player? Are they a good communicator? Are they somebody who's able to be adaptable, or are they somebody who gets frustrated when things change? You want to know those types of things when you're bringing on a partner. Think about how many hours per week do you want this person to work? That time awareness log is a really great exercise for you to establish or have at least a loose framework of how many hours a week you need somebody. What does their flexibility look like? You want to find out, is this somebody that's going to be working a pretty regular 9-to-5 type of schedule? Or is this somebody who's expecting to work in the evenings and on the weekends while they have a full-time job? Those are things that you want to think about as well. So is this somebody that you want accessible during your work hours, even if you're not having them from 9 to 5? One of the other things you want to think about is how involved this person is going to be in not just your day-to-day business, but also your life. Is this somebody that you want to manage your calendar? And if so, how much of that do you want them to have access to? Is this somebody that you want to have scheduling your travel, for example? Is it somebody that you want to have day-to-day as you go throughout your workday? Or is this more like somebody that you're looking for specific specialized projects? Establishing all of those details is going to help you to come up with a compelling job description that attracts the right type of candidates for what you're looking for. As you're writing your job description, you also want to make sure that you include any sort of programs that you're expecting somebody to be proficient in. For example, if you run most of your business through the Google Suite, you want to have somebody that's probably pretty proficient in that. Or if you do most of your business in Microsoft Office, for example, you want to make sure that this is somebody that you're not going to have to train on the basics of how Excel works, right? So you want to include those things in your job description as well. So the duties that they're going to be performing, the type of character that you're looking for in somebody, the hours that you're looking for, how flexible those hours are, and then what types of programs they should be proficient in already. One of the most important things you want to think about when you're thinking about getting an assistant is compensation. How much are you expecting to pay, and how much is this person expecting to receive? Keep in mind, you do get what you pay for. So a great idea is just to do a little bit of research. Look for what the going rate is for a quality virtual or remote assistant. That number is going to vary wildly. If you're finding a remote or virtual assistant that lives outside the country, sometimes you may be able to find someone at a lower rate, but you have to take into consideration time zones, right? There may be language barriers, etc. If you're looking for a virtual assistant that lives in Midtown Manhattan, that's going to cost you a pretty penny. Trust me, I researched it. So just look for what the going rate is for a virtual or remote assistant depending on the location, not necessarily where you are, but the location of where they are. So often we hear, okay, I have an idea of what I need to delegate. I've created this job description. How do I find the person? And what we find is often the best people, the most qualified candidates, are connected to somebody that you already know. So what we suggest is once you have that job description, post it on a site like Facebook where you have your closest connections. If you're not big into Facebook, just get the word out with your friends and family. Text a few people. Hey, this is what I'm looking for. Do you know anybody? Often you're going to find great candidates that way. So start with the people you know the most and the people who know you the most, because they're going to be able to connect you with people that they know. Once you've posted or once you've gotten the word out with your social circles, then you can expand to things like LinkedIn. That's going to be a little bit more business oriented as opposed to personal. So sometimes the candidates you get that way might be, further removed from you. They might be people that you don't know as well, but that's also a great resource. And then from there, you can expand into job posting boards and things of that nature. What we find is usually if you get the word out with your closest network, you will usually find a handful of candidates that people refer to you. Once you have a few candidates to work with, now you want to take them through an interview process. You want to spend some time getting to know these people a little bit. Dig into that job description that you'd posted and that you put together and just ask questions. Ask questions about their past experience. Ideally, you want to ask questions where you're really identifying their character. Again, is this somebody that's going to be a hard worker? Is this somebody who can be adaptable and move with you as you move? Is this somebody that's going to roll with the punches? Are they going to get flustered when things become difficult? You want to identify what type of person this is and are they going to be able to handle the workload that you're giving them? So you want to interview them. And in that interview process, one thing that I always suggest is make sure you give them a little bit of homework. One of the best types of homework that I've always given to virtual or remote assistants as I'm hiring them is to have them do a mock example of a difficult situation. So for example, I'll say, hey, let's imagine that a client is upset or a customer's not happy, or a colleague is disappointed and they email me or they email you. How would you respond? And I always want to see a couple of things in that response. Is it professional in its wording? Are they trying to answer the problem or are they referring them back to me? And how professional does their email etiquette look? I want to know if this is a person that's going to be representing me and partnering with me, that they represent me well. Once you've made the decision to hire this person, we suggest hiring them on a trial basis, maybe 60 to 90 days, where you're in agreement that you're going to spend this time where they can really get to know your business, where they can spend some time with you. It's really important that you know how they communicate, you know how they're expecting you to communicate, and that you all are on the same page. If you know that you like to communicate via text more than email, make sure that's really clear. Are there going to be challenges with that based on different time zones, for example? Are there language barriers involved? All of those things need to be taken into consideration. One of the other most important things to keep in mind when it comes to communicating with your virtual or remote assistant is to make clear how often you want to be communicated with. For example, I've been working with my assistant, she's remote, for a couple years now. And early on in our working relationship, I explained to her that I need her to take everything off my plate that's on my mind and on my calendar that I need to get off and get onto her. And so as I'm going throughout the day, I'm going to be emailing her things and texting her things and getting things over to her. But I set an expectation with her. I didn't expect her to get it done immediately when I sent it. Those are the types of expectations you need to set, because otherwise she could think as I'm sending her something, I'm expecting her to do it right away. But we set the expectation that, no, I'm just getting it off my plate so that it's on yours and I can get it out of my mind. You accomplish it when you can accomplish it, as long as it's done by the end of the day or the end of the week or whatever the parameters are that we set. One of the other expectations we set is, even though I needed to be able to offload things to her all day, I helped her recognize and understand that I wasn't looking for that from her. I wasn't looking for her to update me all throughout the day, because that would just clog up my inbox. So we had an understanding and a good working relationship where I'm sending things to her throughout the day, and she just sends me an updated list at the very end of the day of all the things that she accomplished and all the things that still require my attention. And finally, what we suggest is making sure that you have consistent communication on an ongoing, recurring basis with your assistant. Remember, this is the person that's partnering with you to help your business grow. If you do this the right way, a virtual or remote assistant can be one of the best investments you make into your business. If you enjoyed this video and found value in the content, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Southwestern Consulting, for more content on helping you grow your business.